Greetings to all. Life has a way of catching you off guard. That was precisely what came to mind on a seemingly mundane Wednesday evening. Upon my return from work, the sound of my heels echoed softly against the wooden floor as I stepped into the warmth of my home. The day had stretched on, each moment dragging with a weight that felt almost tangible. All I yearned for was the soothing embrace of a hot bath. A sanctuary where the burdens of the day could dissolve into the water, leaving only tranquility in their wake. Unbeknownst to me, that evening would etch an indelible mark on my existence, shifting the course of all that transpired within our household. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, allowing me to continue sharing captivating and authentic stories like these. Be sure to watch this video all the way to the end, and kindly give it a thumbs up, as this story promises to be quite captivating. Kindly tap the like button to show your support. As I stepped into the home, a profound silence enveloped me, a familiar presence that was anything but unexpected. Earlier in the day, my husband Thomas mentioned that he would be attending a late meeting. He had been toiling away for extended hours recently, striving to meet the looming deadline of a significant project. Only Logan remained at home, the son of Thomas from his earlier marriage. Logan, at the tender age of 20, embodied a quiet charm, a young man whose presence seldom stirred trouble. He toiled part-time at the neighborhood hardware store, dedicating most of his free hours to the solitude of his room. While our bond was not deeply intimate, we shared a delightful camaraderie rooted in mutual respect. I had always perceived him as a person who valued his own space and solitude. Reminiscent of his father, the serenity of the house had woven itself into my routine, a comforting presence when it was just the two of us. Setting my suitcase on the kitchen counter, I poured myself a drink of water and caught sight of Logan's pickup parked in the driveway. Strange, I mused. He often toiled through the late hours. I called out his name with an air of casualness, and my voice reverberated through the vacant house. Silence prevails. I paid little attention to it, as I presumed he was in his room, possibly lost in music or deep in slumber. Having quenched my thirst with a refreshing sip of water, I made my way upstairs to slip into something more comfortable. Following an exhausting day, my only desire was to find solace in rest. As I walked past the bathroom, I caught the soft murmur of running water and noticed the door ajar. Just a crack. This caught my attention as something out of the ordinary. Logan held a steadfast commitment to the sanctity of privacy. He ensured that doors were secured with utmost precision, particularly the bathroom door. My interest was ignited. I hesitated for a moment before gently easing the door open a little wider. The sight before me stopped me in my tracks. Logan stood by the sink, a figure caught in a moment of quiet contemplation. His back faced me, and his shoulders drooped in a manner that implied he was absorbed in something. His movements were awkward, bordering on chaotic, and I noticed he was without a shirt, his pants sagging carelessly at his hips. He appeared to be gripping a washcloth, diligently scrubbing something hidden from view. The sudden creak of the door startled him. He spun on his heel, his gaze frantic and filled with terror. "Oh my goodness! I didn't notice your arrival," he shouted, his voice quivering with emotion. I stood frozen, equally astonished. I moved my eyes from him to the washcloth, a surge of discomfort washing over me. It was far from what I had anticipated upon entering, and a sense of guilt crept in for intruding on this moment. Apologies escaped my lips in a whisper, as I averted my eyes. I had no intention of imposing. I stepped back swiftly, my heart pounding in my chest. I reached for the doorknob, prepared to withdraw and grant him the solitude he clearly sought. Just as I was about to secure the door, Logan's voice cut through the silence. "Wait," he implored, his tone laced with desperation. "It isn't quite what you imagine." I hesitated, my fingers poised above the doorknob. Part of me yearned to escape down the corridor, to act as if nothing had happened. Yet another part was captivated by the unfolding mystery. His voice lacked the defensiveness typical of someone ensnared in wrongdoing. Rather, it was brimming with humiliation and despair. Against my better judgment, I found myself turning back to confront him. My eyes locked onto his features. "All right," I responded with caution, striving to keep my tone even. "What is unfolding?" Logan cast his gaze downward, his cheeks blooming with a vivid crimson hue. He seemed to be searching for the right words, his hands awkwardly manipulating the washcloth. At last, he released a deep breath and remarked, "I simply didn't know whom else to turn to. Could you clarify what you are inquiring about?" I apply a gentle touch. My fascination deepened, even in the face of the discomforting situation. He shifted restlessly, his gaze averted. He admitted it was personal. I find myself grappling with certain challenges, and clarity eludes me on how to proceed. With Dad absent, you are my sole confidant in this moment. His vulnerability took me by surprise. Logan had consistently upheld his autonomy, seldom revealing details about his personal life. The notion that he sought my help caused me to hesitate. As I crossed the threshold into the bathroom, a sense of anticipation washed over me. I eased the door closed, just enough to envelop us in a cocoon of privacy. "Very well," I replied, maintaining a steady tone. "Could you share with me what is going on?" Logan paused, contemplating how to articulate his thoughts. Initially, his words came out in a blur, as he grappled with expressing the torment that consumed him. I listened intently, striving to unravel the threads of his words. It soon became clear that this was a sensitive topic, one he felt too shy to bring up with his father. As he spoke, a wave of empathy washed over me. Requesting assistance is rarely a simple endeavor, particularly when it involves something deeply personal. The strain in his eyes was palpable, a silent battle raging within him between the desire for assistance and the fear of judgment lurking in the shadows. "Very well," I replied after a brief pause for contemplation. "It is truly commendable that you are focusing on these nuances. This shows a genuine concern for your well-being. Moreover, seeking clarification or assistance is nothing to be embarrassed about." Logan looked up at me, his eyes brimming with gratitude and a sense of calm. "Is that so? Do you not find this peculiar?" "Not in the slightest," I assured him with confidence. At some point, everyone finds themselves pondering the mysteries of their own bodies. It is perfectly natural. For the next several minutes, I shared with him the most insightful guidance I could muster, drawing from my own knowledge and experiences. I endeavored to maintain the discussion grounded and clear, steering clear of any elements that might heighten his discomfort. The relief was palpable for him as the conversation unfolded, despite its somewhat clumsy start. As the conversation unfolded, the initial discomfort began to fade away. Logan seemed to unwind, and I noticed the relief in his demeanor as he welcomed the company for conversation. By the conclusion of our conversation, he seemed to have found a greater sense of ease. He even managed to conjure a faint smile. "Thank you," he replied slowly, his voice barely rising above a whisper. "I never imagined I would share this with anyone." I mirrored his smile, feeling a wave of relief wash over me as the tension dissipated. "Welcome, Logan. Always keep in mind that seeking help is never out of place. Not a single soul possesses all the answers." Upon leaving the restroom, an unusual blend of emotions washed over me. In one regard, I found satisfaction in being present for Logan during his time of need, offering him a listening ear. The incident, so unforeseen and extraordinary, left me utterly at a loss for how to respond. The event carried an air of significance, suggesting a pivotal shift in the dynamics of our relationship. I found myself uncertain about its meaning and how it might unfold in the coming days. I attempted to brush aside the strange feeling as I moved through my evening, yet it lingered in the recesses of my thoughts. Much like a shadow, the residence exuded tranquility, accompanied solely by the soft murmur of the air conditioner. Thomas returned home late that night, weary but content. He remained completely unaware of the peculiar conversation that had taken place in his absence. As I reclined in bed that night, gazing up at the ceiling, my mind wandered through the events of the evening. A shift had occurred, yet I found myself unable to identify its source. All I understood was that life within our walls would forever be altered. The days that followed that unforeseen meeting were anything but ordinary. No significant events unfolded. Indeed, all appeared to be perfectly ordinary on the surface. Thomas pressed on with his task, as he always did. Logan adhered to his part-time shift and study regimen, while I persisted in juggling my home and work responsibilities. Yet, beneath the veneer, an unspoken but palpable tension lingered between Logan and me. It wasn't merely that we became more aware of each other's vulnerabilities. A profound change had occurred. A subtle shift in the dynamic that left me feeling uncertain about how to navigate it. Logan had always managed to slip through my fingers, shrouding the greater part of his existence in mystery. Our exchanges, though amicable, remained confined to the realm of superficial pleasantries. Yet, in the wake of our conversation about the toilet, I felt an unexpected depth of connection emerge between us. A sensation that was both disconcerting and oddly comforting. My thoughts drifted to him more than they should have. Not out of maternal instinct or worry, but rather with a sense of wonder at how I had overlooked this facet of his being until now. Understanding that Logan was not merely the reserved young man who preferred solitude, I discovered a profound depth within him. An intricate emotional landscape that I had only just begun to grasp. On Friday evening, Logan's behavior shifted in a more pronounced manner. Thomas had departed to meet with a client, while I busied myself with the preparations for dinner. Logan had not yet come back from his shift at the hardware shop. As I sliced through the crisp vegetables, the sound of his pickup rolling into the driveway reached my ears. I halted my knife in midair, contemplating the best way to greet him. The unease that had woven itself into the fabric of our interactions over the past few days had created a wall I found myself at a loss to dismantle. As the front door swung open, I exclaimed, "Hey!" Logan, attempting to convey an air of indifference. He took his time to reply. Yet I could hear the sound of his footsteps as he made his way into the kitchen. He appeared weary, yet managed a faint smile. "Hey," he responded softly. "What's for dinner?" I returned his smile, feeling a sense of relief that he was no longer as aloof as he had been in the days prior. "Merely a plate of spaghetti. Do you feel a pang of hunger?" "Yes. I am hungry," he replied, moving toward the counter to pour himself a glass of water. Initially, we dined in silence, the only noise being the gentle clink of forks against plates. Yet, I noticed Logan seemed more at ease than he had been in days. His smile seemed more authentic, and his posture was noticeably more relaxed. He set his fork aside and looked at me, a faint flush coloring his cheeks. "I've been reflecting on your words from the other night," he started. I took a moment to gather my thoughts before proceeding, and I felt compelled to express my gratitude once more for your attentive ear. I lifted my eyes from the food before me and locked onto his stare. His speech, imbued with sincerity, had the power to calm my heart. I had been anticipating this moment, pondering my response, yet feeling a sense of relief that he trusted me enough to open up. "Certainly, Logan," I replied, my voice calm and gentle. "I'm thrilled to have been of help." Another lengthy pause ensued. Yet this time, a sense of unease did not accompany it as it had previously. It felt as though we were genuinely engaged in conversation, rather than merely occupying the silence with courteous small talk. "You've always been polite to me," he said, his voice softer now. "And I don't want you to think I don't appreciate it," I nodded, feeling the weight of his words, unsure of how to convey their significance to me. "I understand it isn't always easy," I finally replied. "But I'm glad you know you can talk to me at any time." He grinned again, this time with a hint of ease. "I'll make an effort to keep that in mind," he replied, reaching for another slice of spaghetti. As supper progressed, our conversations took on a more relaxed and casual tone. Our conversation meandered through his educational journey, touched upon his part-time job, and delved into the latest Netflix series that had captured both our attention. It may have been a small step forward, yet it was a step all the same. Logan was starting to reveal himself, albeit in subtle ways. Despite the initial awkwardness of our conversation. Later that evening, after we had finished our meal, I settled onto the couch, a book in hand, seeking solace in its pages. Logan withdrew to his chamber, his steps soft against the floorboards. I found myself pondering if he was still processing the conversation we had shared. The subsequent days unfolded in a similar fashion. Thomas found himself arriving home later each night, as the demands of his work increasingly consumed his time. Logan, though somewhat more approachable than in the past, still maintained a certain reserve in various aspects of his life. Our conversations during dinner were fleeting yet significant, and he seemed to relax in my presence. However, an unspoken tension lingered between us, one that neither of us was inclined to address. On one of those tranquil evenings, perhaps a week after our conversation in the restroom, Logan did something utterly unforeseen. The hour was drawing near for slumber, and I found myself cocooned on the couch, engrossed in the latest episode of a captivating drama. Logan appeared in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "May I have a moment of your time to converse?" he asked, his voice scarcely rising above a murmur. I jolted awake, pondering what lay ahead. "Certainly. Enter. Please." He paused momentarily at the threshold, gathering his thoughts before stepping into the room. He seemed anxious, his posture rigid, as though he were uncertain of his words. "What thoughts occupy your mind?" I asked gently, wishing to create a safe space for him. Logan shifted his weight from one foot to the other, momentarily avoiding my gaze before responding. I've been reflecting on the matters I shared with you, and I feel it's time to speak with Dad. I find myself uncertain, yet I feel he must grasp the depths of my experience. His statements left me utterly astounded. He found himself in a state of greater vulnerability than ever before. This marked a significant advancement. He acknowledged his feelings and recognized that he required assistance from Thomas. In addition to my own support, I offered a smile, wishing to bring him some solace. Logan, that's a significant milestone, and I have faith that Thomas will appreciate your visit. Though it presents challenges, it remains essential. He inclined his head, his eyes locking onto mine. A flicker of gratitude shone in his eyes, revealing the struggle he faced in choosing to speak with Thomas. Yet it was evident he had traveled a considerable distance. He murmured softly, "I don't want to complicate our relationship. I have come to understand that recent times have brought about a shift." I shook my head, a wave of warmth washing over me for him. "It's perfectly understandable," I said to him. "Logan, we are bound by family. In every situation, we consistently support each other." He bestowed upon me a faint smile and inclined his head slightly before he turned to depart. "Thank you for everything," he remarked, glancing back over his shoulder. As he stepped out of the room, I released a breath I hadn't known I was holding. A deep sense of pride welled up within me for him. He was discovering the art of communication, reaching out for assistance, and navigating his emotions with a sense of balance. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was witnessing a pivotal moment in his growth. The next day, Thomas returned home from work sooner than usual. His face bore the marks of fatigue. Yet, his footsteps were gentle as he crossed the threshold. "Hey," he murmured, letting his briefcase fall to the floor by the door. "How are you faring these days?" "Excellent," I remarked, a smile gracing my lips. Yet, I sense that Logan is contemplating something. Thomas arched an eyebrow. "Could you clarify what you mean?" "He has shown a greater willingness to share lately," I remarked, "and he expressed a desire to discuss something significant with you." Thomas's expression shifted, revealing a blend of apprehension and anticipation. "I will talk to him," he declared, his voice steady and assured. "I appreciate you sharing that with me." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow through the windows, Thomas and Logan found themselves nestled in the cozy embrace of the living room, sharing the quietude that followed supper. Though the words eluded my ears, I observed Logan leaning in, engaged in a fervent exchange with his father. Thomas leaned in, his face a canvas of concern and tenderness. Logan's journey into maturity became a pivotal moment in their relationship, and Thomas stood ready to embrace it alongside him. With the passage of weeks, existence fell back into its familiar rhythm. The unspoken tension between Logan and me gradually faded away with the passage of time. He no longer shunned my presence, and I could sense he was still processing his words. Yet he seemed unburdened and more authentically himself. As Thomas and Logan shared more moments together, the bond between them deepened, revealing Thomas's earnest efforts to be more engaged in his child's life. One weekend, Thomas suggested we embark on a day trip to the lake. His endeavor to cultivate our friendship resonated with me, and I believed it to be a splendid notion. The day unfolded under a canopy of pristine blue skies. accompanied by a gentle, caressing breeze that whispered of perfection. We prepared a delightful lunch, journeyed to the serene lake, and immersed ourselves in a day of relaxation and enjoyment. We lost ourselves in the sun-drenched hours, swimming, tossing a frisbee, and unwinding on the warm sand of the beach. Logan seemed genuinely delighted, exchanging smiles and playful banter with Thomas in a manner I had never witnessed before. The sight of their interaction filled my heart with excitement, and I wished that journey would serve as a pivotal moment for each of us. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the lake, we settled on the beach, savoring the final moments of daylight. Thomas lay peacefully on a blanket, his gentle snores harmonizing with the rhythmic sound of the waves. Logan and I positioned ourselves a short distance from one another, gazing out at the horizon. He murmured his gratitude after a prolonged silence. "Thank you for coming today. It has been delightful. Simply enjoying each other's company." A smile spread across my face as a wave of tranquility washed over me. Joy fills my heart. We ought to engage in activities like this with greater regularity. He nodded, his gaze fixed on the vast expanse of the ocean. Indeed, I am convinced it is beneficial. We lingered in silence a while longer, our unspoken connection suffusing the quiet around us. As Thomas stirred from his slumber, we gathered our things and set off for home, our hearts full of laughter and the cherished memories of the day. That night, as I lay in bed beside Thomas, I pondered the journey we had taken together as a family. The past fortnight proved challenging, yet it also forged a bond between us that I had not anticipated. Logan's journey was far from over, yet I felt certain that he and we were heading in the right direction.